more than ever that this is a time that the state of Illinois stands up and says that we love immigrant families, that they are our family, that you are not going to come into our house and just try to take people and separate families in this state. People have rights. They are called human rights.
Do not forget that we in Chicago do not support sanctuary cities, especially the people who live on the south and west side who had our schools turned into migrant shelters.
So stop paying for illegal health care benefits, stop paying for illegals, start putting Illinois citizens first, and I am sure President Trump would be happy to work with you. Thank you.
Just some of the back and forth over the past few days over the issue of Illinois' sanctuary state policies. Welcome in. It's Illinois in Focus Daily. Next week, Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson is going to be testifying in front of a House Oversight Committee about sanctuary policies. And all of this, well, if you go to thecentersquare.com, you can get the newsletter each and every weekday morning on national news, but also Illinois news. You'll see Bethany Blakely's story about Republican senators file bill targeting sanctuary jurisdictions. So let's just read a little bit from the Center Square's article here, where you can, again, get this in your inbox each and every weekday morning, or just go to thecentersquare.com and get the stories. But Republicans in the U.S. Senate, led by Senator Ted Cruz of Texas, has filed a bill to provide protections for law enforcement officials in sanctuary jurisdictions and expand penalties for noncompliance with federal immigration enforcement. Cruz filed the Stop Dangerous Sanctuary Cities Act to ensure state and local law enforcement officers have legal protections when cooperating with federal immigration officials targeting the most dangerous criminal offenders illegally in the U.S. Now, why is this important? Illinois has the Trust Act, which ultimately says local and state law enforcement are prohibited from cooperating with federal immigration officials under many circumstances. And it's even to the point where, while sheriffs get notices of the various types of deportation orders that may be in their area, they can't do anything about it. They'll be violating state law. So, a lot of conversation about skirting law. In the last segment with What's Up in Washington, D.C., we heard, Senator Dick Durbin from Illinois and Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker say that democracy is under attack. But when you look at Illinois, is it not democracy under attack when the state is flouting federal immigration law, right? So that I think is going to come into fine contrast and focus next week when we have Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson set to testify in front of Congress. Now, here's a little bit of a highly produced video that House Oversight Committee, led by Republicans, put together of the, a preview of sorts of what to expect for the House Oversight Committee that's going to be on March 5th.
For many years, a radical and corrupt establishment fails to protect our magnificent, law-abiding American citizens, but provide sanctuary and protection for dangerous criminals.
Pushback in the sanctuary city of Boston. Mayor Michelle Wu says the city will not cooperate with his plan for mass deportation.
Police agents in Massachusetts arresting 2 illegal immigrants facing sex crimes against children in 2 separate instances.
Illegal alien from Haiti, the gang member with 17 criminal convictions.
Trump, you feel me? Will Biden forever, bro. Thank Obama for everything that he did for me, bro.
The goal of the Trump administration is to get us to surrender our humanity.
To Mayor Brandon Johnson continue to reinforce his sanctuary city status to fight back against President Donald Trump's immigration policies.
So this is an example of sanctuary cities, right? You got an illegal alien convicted of sex crimes involving children, and he's walking the streets of Chicago.
We are compassionate people, so we're doing everything in our power to demonstrate compassion.
Lighting a sleeping woman on fire.
So again, it goes on from there. I mean, it's a good almost 3-minute long video, and you can see that at the Oversight Committee's X page. And again, March 5th is when that's going to happen. Boston, Chicago, Denver, New York City mayors are going to be in front of that committee to discuss and take questions about what some say is these sanctuary policies flouting federal immigration law, right? I mean, you always hear people need to follow the rule of law, but I mean, this is a federal law that states and cities like Chicago are bucking, right? So Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson was asked about this earlier this week, and here's what he had to say.
Fanning the flames.
Not that one. Let's go to this one. Okay, in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Well, look, our welcoming city ordinance, as well as the complementary state law that the state of Illinois provides, ensures that our local law enforcement shows up in the most transparent and effective way. That we do not want any individuals who are undocumented or otherwise to have breakdown between their ability to communicate with law enforcement. As far as, our status, again, as a 40-year trajectory of being a welcoming city for immigrants from around the globe, whether they are Jewish or Chinese or Polish or Italian, Mexican, we're going to remain a welcoming city and hold to our values.
So he goes on from there, but the issue is difference between legal immigrants and illegal immigrants. And there may inject a sense of, well, some of them are asylum seekers. Let's see that breakdown. Let's see where they're at in the process. And do we actually have asylum seekers that came through ports of entry? Or do we have people who crossed the border illegally claiming asylum? All right, I think those numbers we really do need to have officials tell us about. I mean, we've had 50,000 plus non-citizen migrants come to the state of Illinois, if not more, that we don't know about, because of course they're undocumented, right? But the state of Illinois' policies being a sanctuary policy where local law enforcement, state police can't cooperate with federal immigration authorities, it really hinders the ability to have accountability in all of this, especially when you have a Republican administration under the Trump administration with something he was elected to do deportations of people in the country illegally, and he's focusing early now on violent criminals. You've got this issue. So Chicago City Council met. They had citizens stand up. Here's one of them that was pretty pointed with the upcoming testimony that Johnson's going to give to Congress about sanctuary city policies.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I don't have a lot to say, but DOGE, they recently reported an estimate of $65 billion in savings. And I know you go to Capitol Hill next month. If they would propose to you, we'll give you $20 billion to rescind the sanctuary city status, would you rescind it? Because $20 billion can be used a lot. It could be used even in a municipal bankruptcy, like Mike Duggan did in Detroit in his first term. So it's not about how long you've been, it's about the usage of it.
It's an interesting proposal there to say I'll drop the sanctuary city policies if you give us $20 billion. I don't know if that's a workable negotiation, but Trump prides himself on being a chief negotiator. Who knows? But another citizen got up and said that, listen, the sanctuary city stuff in Chicago is not popular.
Mayor Brandon Johnson, I am so happy that you are testifying before Congress, because the people of Chicago, especially on the south and west side, do not support sanctuary cities. I know the election is over and people are trying to distract you with lunatics protesting against deportations and Democrats doing what Democrats do. But do not forget that we in Chicago do not support sanctuary cities, especially the people who live on the south and west side who had our schools turned into migrant shelters. And for all the people who are mad about Trump getting rid of DEI and critical race theory, those things were racist. You cannot fight past discrimination with future discrimination. If Martin Luther King saw what the Democratic Party has become, he would roll over in his grave.
So that's just one resident of Chicago sharing their thoughts there. I got this message last night that a news conference is planned in Chicago at City Hall from the group Chicago Red. I'll just read to you what this has to say here. It says that on today, 11 o'clock, a press conference is going to be held in Chicago City Hall on LaSalle Street in Chicago to address critical issues impacting the citizens of Chicago. The press conference will directly respond to Governor J.B. Pritzker's recent comments comparing Trump supporters to Nazis. These remarks have caused significant outrage, particularly among black supporters who find such statements offensive and divisive. We will emphasize, again, this is from the press release, we will emphasize the importance of respect for diverse political beliefs and demand accountability from elected officials in fostering unity rather than division, especially during Black History Month. Additionally, we will address the billions of tax dollars allocated to migrant health care, which has now resulted in Medicaid cuts for U.S. citizens. This reallocation of funds has placed a burden on vulnerable communities, and we will call for transparency and responsible fiscal policies that prioritize the needs of Chicago's longtime residents. Another bit here from this news release, again from Chicago Red, planning a news conference at Chicago City Hall. Another major concern is the recent $830 million bond deal approved by the City Council. The funding earmarked for migrant expenses also includes nonprofit grants purportedly aimed at supporting the black community. However, this bond deal will ultimately cost the next generation $2 billion, creating long-term financial strain on taxpayers while raising concerns about the equitable distribution of city resources. Lastly, we will discuss Mayor Brandon Johnson's upcoming visit to Congress. The citizens of Chicago overwhelmingly oppose sanctuary city policies, and we will make it clear that the voices of residents must be heard. Our city's priorities should reflect the needs of the people who lived and worked here and contributed to the community for generations. So again, that's a news release from Chicago Red that is announcing a news conference today. So we may hear more about that here in the hours ahead. But clearly, you know, the debate rages on while you've got people saying that sanctuary city policies aren't popular, and you got Chicago's mayor going to Washington, D.C. At the State House this week, you had the Illinois Coalition for Immigrants and Refugee Rights hold a rally where they brought in Democrat legislators who are very much on board with having non-citizen migrant health care coverage subsidized by Illinois taxpayers. That ballooned out of control from an audit that we saw that was released this week. Here's State Senator Omar Aquino speaking to about 150 people in the Illinois State Capitol hallway about what he says is their responsibility to stand up and fight.
I am the proud sponsor of making sure that undocumented seniors were able to get health care in this state. I was proud to sponsor the expansion to make sure that people from 42 to 64 can have health care in this state. I am the proud sponsor of the Earned Income Tax Credit and the Child Tax Credit to make sure that no matter what your family is, undocumented or not, we live in mixed documented statuses, that you get taxes back into your pocket. I am proud to stand with these champions behind me and all these champions all in front of me right here, who are going to make sure that we say more than ever that this is a time that the state of Illinois stands up and says that we love immigrant families, that they are our families, that you are not going to come into our house and just try to take people and separate families in this state.
Not here.
People have rights. They are called human rights. I don't care if they have a document or not. And when you are complaining as a federal government that you are being informed of your rights and that you can't be separated that easily because we ain't no fools, then tough luck. Because here in the state of Illinois, we stand up for all immigrants, and we are going to continue to fight together. Let's get to work.
So very passionate, and of course he's in the majority party at the State House. They have super majorities, Democrats do, in both the Illinois House and the Illinois Senate. But it doesn't stop Republicans from continuing to highlight the problems that they see with the policies Democrats have, and the bloat and the cost to Illinois taxpayers. Here's State Representative C.D. Davidsmeyer on the House floor yesterday, standing up, talking about that audit that came out earlier this week from the Illinois Auditor General.
The key findings of that audit were frankly shocking.
And some of those findings were that you have the cost overruns way over what was projected, 286% in one case, and that the checks and balances within the programs for health benefits for immigrant seniors and immigrant adults weren't really checking the eligibility for a whole bunch of these individuals who were getting taxpayer subsidies for health care coverage. So more from C.D. Davidsmeyer. And go.
The total cost from 21 to 23 was $1.6 million, and they've updated those to over $2 billion just in healthcare costs directly to the people of the state of Illinois. That doesn't count hotels, that doesn't count any other ancillary things that were a cost to the city of Chicago and to the state of Illinois. As the sponsor of House Bill 1456, which will end taxpayer-funded health care for illegal immigrants, I was surprised to see last week that the governor actually supported part of my idea. He wants to get rid of the HBIA program. Unfortunately, he does not want to get rid of the HBIS program, which is something that I hope that we can work towards. Keep in mind that these programs were not passed through the committee process. They didn't go through the three-step process that we're required to go through. They were added to the BIMP and passed in the middle of the night. We couldn't afford free health care for illegal immigrants when the first HBIS program was passed during COVID, and we certainly cannot afford it now. Even Governor Pritzker has come to that realization. For all the reasons stated above, and in the Auditor General's report, these programs must immediately come to an end. Shut them down now.
So C.D. Davids-Meyer sharing his concerns while he was talking. Democrats weren't really paying attention. Others pointing out that is interesting, as Democrats aren't really willing to hear what Republicans have to say, what they feel is wasteful spending and potentially illegal spending. State Representative Lindsay LaPointe, Democrat from Chicago, pushed back on Republicans' criticism.
And been accused of having no concern. No concern. On this side of the aisle, we feel like some in this chamber have no concern that Medicaid is at risk. We feel that there's no concern that the $21 billion that the federal government sends to Illinois every year is at risk. We feel that there is no concern that the 772,000 people that are on the Medicaid expansion program that have health insurance for the first time in their lives is at risk.
You know, we've heard the same criticism from other prominent Democrats, even Governor J.B. Pritzker, but it sounds hypothetical, at risk, they say. That hasn't happened. And they keep saying, you know, we're concerned about a hypothetical, but the Republicans are saying, no, look at this audit that shows hundreds of millions of dollars spent above and beyond what was estimated for taxpayer subsidies to non-citizen migrants, people in this country undocumented. Are they asylum seekers? Are they here illegally? Again, I'd like to see that breakdown. But the line of politicking and grandstanding here from the elected officials in Illinois, sharing their concerns. More from Lindsay LaPointe.
We've opened the conversation about big budget line items today and about people losing their jobs. Thank you, Representative Ammons. And about who cares about what. We care about that existential threat to not only healthcare access, but our state budget. We cannot lose that $21 billion. We cannot lose that $7.34 billion. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
So again, these are hypotheticals where you've got Republicans pointing to things that are being audited that have already happened and having the red flag raised there. State Representative Adam Niemerg, he pushed back on this idea that you've heard Democrats say that health care is under threat and Medicaid is under threat. Here's some of what he had to say on the House floor yesterday.
Hi, reporter. Can you guarantee?
And this is a question that he's reading from a Oval Office news event with President Donald Trump taking questions.
Hi, reporter. Can you guarantee Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security will not be touched? President Trump, I have said many times that you shouldn't even ask me that question. He said no. But when we have a line item in here. Things we talk about line item budgets, and you're $2.2 billion. $2.2 billion. You're 286% higher on your cost estimates for illegal immigrant health care. You know, other folks throughout the state of Illinois, they have deductibles, they have cost sharing, it comes out of their own pocket. Then on Tuesday, the governor sends a letter to President Trump saying, you guys need to unfreeze the $1.88 billion in federal funding. Well, I'm sure President Trump would be very happy to talk about federal funding to the state of Illinois if you stopped paying for illegal immigrant health care. And this $2.2 billion doesn't even talk about the cost for housing, transportation. That's something I'll be asking the Auditor General about. Who's paying for this? Where are these contracts coming from? Who's making money on this? Because it surely isn't the citizens of the state of Illinois. So stop paying for illegal health care benefits. Stop paying for illegals. Start putting Illinois citizens first, and I am sure President Trump would be happy to work with you. Thank you.
And we'll hear a lot more about this. It's only just starting at the Illinois State House, especially with the ongoing questions of federal funds and states' policies for diversity, equity, and inclusion going against Trump executive orders. What happens with education funding when it comes to the possible closure of the Department of Education on a federal level? What happens with this sanctuary state stuff, right? So we'll be watching Brandon Johnson testifying alongside mayors from other sanctuary cities in front of Congress, and we'll bring all of that to you. That's why you need to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell with us here at the Center Square on YouTube. Get the headlines at thecentersquare.com. Follow us anywhere you get podcasts. Just search Illinois in Focus, and follow me anywhere. Just find me on X, Facebook, Instagram. Search Bishop on Air. I'm executive editor with the Center Square for Illinois. This is Illinois in Focus Daily. Appreciate you guys tuning in.